The instance, Retake Weathertop, in Lord of the Rings Online falls into the usual pattern of the epic questline. The quest takes place just after the events concerning Gandalf, Frodo, and the Nazguls. In LOTRO, the hill has been overtaken by orcs and other fell creatures, which you are tasked with defeating. This quest, albeit in different ways from the film and novel, recreates the terror of the scene of Weathertop. All three mediums use the setting to create suspense in the reader, watcher, or player. But before we really talk about the suspense, let's look at the setting itself. Although the timeline is different, LOTRO does a great job of recreating Weathertop as a game space rather than a setting. To jog our memory, the description of Weathertop in The Fellowship of the Rings is as follows. On the top they found, as Strider had said, a wide ring of ancient stonework, now crumbling or covered with age-long grass. But in the center, a cairn of broken stones had been piled. They were blackened as if with fire. About them the turf was burned to the roots, and all within the ring the grass was scorched and shriveled, as if the flames had swept the hilltop. Standing upon the rim of the ancient circle, they saw all around below them a wide prospect, for the most part of lands empty and featureless. This footage is taken from the quest just before Retake Weathertop. Here we see the ring of broken and ancient stonework, the shriveled and burnt grass, the blackened cairn of stones in the center, and even the runestone that Gandalf left for the Fellowship. And here we can see the lands empty and featureless as I ride down from Weathertop. All of these features combine to make Weathertop a wasteland that is clearly marked for danger. The burnt and shriveled grass, the ancient ruins of stone, and the empty countryside contribute to a sense of foreboding. Peter Jackson's film interpretation of Weathertop is a little bit different, but creates suspense nonetheless. The top of the hill is crowned by jagged stones, much like it is in LOTRO, but the hill rises almost like a fist in the air. There's a flat plateau on the top of the hill, and the area is relatively small compared to LOTRO's presentation. It is adorned with guardian-like statues, presumably from the days when Weathertop was an outpost of the Dunedain, adding to the forgotten qualities of the place. The real action concerning Weathertop in the novel doesn't actually take place on the hilltop as it does in the film adaptation and in LOTRO. In the novel, the Fellowship have taken refuge in a dell to the north of Weathertop. Over the lip of the little dell, on the side away from the hill, they felt, rather than saw, a shadow rise, one shadow or more than one. They strained their eyes, and the shadows seemed to grow. Soon there could be no doubt. 3 or 4 tall black figures were standing there on the slope, looking down on them. So black were they that they seemed like black holes in the deep shade behind them. Frodo thought that he heard a faint hiss as of venomous breath, and felt a thin, piercing chill. Then the shapes slowly advanced. The film, during the scene of fighting between the Nazguls and the Fellowship, employs mist, wind effects, lighting, and sound in the place of words. The wind whips the hair off Frodo's face, standing in for the thin, piercing chill. Mist shrouds the figures of the Nazguls as they slowly advance on the hilltop. The lighting is dark, and the music indicates that the danger is real and imminent. The relatively smaller space also emphasizes that the Fellowship is being cornered and is trapped by the Nazguls, upping the suspense factor. LOTRO had to portray the events of Weathertop differently. The character that you are playing is not a part of the Fellowship, and the enemies are different. But the sense of suspense is still apparent. First of all, the instance takes place at night, so the game space is somewhat steeped in gloom, and to make it even more clear the questers are entering a danger zone, it's raining sideways, indicating wind. This is another case, like the film, of using weather to mirror the inner turmoil the characters are feeling. This darkness leads to torches being placed along the path the questers must travel, which can be used to light fires that are seen by the enemies through the gloom and indicate attack to them. Another way the game creates suspense is through dialogue, both from Candaith and from the enemies. Candaith is telling us to be prepared for anything, an indication that what lies ahead is unknown, and we all know that the unknown is perhaps the scariest thing we could face. In a move that recalls horror movie tropes, and horror movies are masters of suspense, Candaith insists that the group split up. Everyone is familiar with this tactic. The main character loses their trusted guide and is thrust into danger without them, much like when the Fellowship loses Gandalf in Moria. Though we completed this instance in a Fellowship and weren't totally alone, playing a video game is even more nerve-wracking than reading a novel or watching a film, because you are the one who must be able to perform under pressure, not the character you are reading about or watching on screen. Being in control of the character is what makes playing this instance so suspenseful, because there is no set outcome. The events of a movie or novel are static. They will happen the same way every time. In a video game, you can try different tactics, changing the storyline somewhat, and there is no guarantee that you will succeed. You will probably fail. And fail we did during this final scene. Another exercise in creating suspense because you have to keep going back and fighting. Again, here we see Candace telling us to be prepared for anything, more fear of the unknown. We see the enemy is talking, thinking we're at a safe distance. They're discussing how they're going to murder us. Not comforting. There's Olaganaga. We don't know who that is yet. And we think we're safe, but the orcs sense our presence and come to attack, which we did not expect at first. So it took us a little bit off our guard. Then as we fight Rygul, the main enemy thus far, he stops the fight to taunt us about his little surprise, which, it's not going to be a little surprise. Now we die for the light hand, and the ground shakes, and turn around, all of a sudden there's a giant mountain troll with a flaming club who uses it to just kill us all. And there I go. I am dead. There is a reason people like watching horror movies and thrillers. We like to be a little bit afraid. While the novel The Fellowship of the Ring and its film adaptation use their mediums to create a suspenseful setting of Weathertop, there's something about actually participating, though it may be virtually, in events in this setting that gives playing LOTRO a bit of an edge in the suspense department.